Sorry, guys, for the glitch. I'll restart. Um, as I was saying, that there are 1.3 billion people with disabilities in the world, but technology has the ability to empower people with disabilities to live a life they wish and, most importantly, they deserve. Hello, everyone. I am Navya Agarwal, a senior software developer at Adobe, and I have never been more excited to talk about the recent advances in Gen AI and how it can bridge the gap between accessibility and technology. But I'm also concerned that the data we use to train our LLMs includes biases against people with disabilities. Over the next 30 minutes, we will explore this intersection between AI and accessibility. We will learn about the positive impacts of AI tools. We will also explore some of its shortcomings. And along the way, we will learn the role of humans. But first, we need to dig deeper into this concept of accessibility. And this brings me to the accessibility equation. Disability is equal to people into barriers. We generally talk about people with disabilities because of barriers. But what if barriers is equal to zero? Does it mean that disabilities is also equal to zero? Probably yes. Disability isn't a personal health issue. One is disabled by the society. For example, a building, if a building only has steps and does not have a ramp or an elevator, the problem isn't the person on the wheelchair, but the way the system or the building has been designed to specifically exclude that person in wheelchair. For example, if you give a blind person a text in braille, he or she becomes enabled. And I think if we look out for accessibility in terms of barriers and look at minimizing those barriers, this is really powerful. Disability isn't just limited to a person in a wheelchair or a person who is visually impaired, but it also extends to our day to day scenarios. For example, a person with a broken arm. He struggles to type, carry things around, or open doors. Someone holding a grocery bag in both hands. We do that all the time, right? We are unable to open a door or use our phone in that case. Or imagine a cyclist wearing gloves in winters. He or she struggles to use touch screens or fine motor controls on the phone. A parent holding a baby, a pregnant lady, and the list is endless. Accessibility is just making sure that everyone has access to things. Disabled people are disabled by the society, not by their bodies. But let's see how we can make these barriers in technology or web equal to zero. But before that, I have a very short video for you all. Let's roll it.
I've been using technology for many, many years now for almost any aspect of my life. Once you're heavily dependent on technology, an inaccessible website with poor interaction with a screen reader can make things much more difficult. When you know those colorful ads on the internet with beautiful women walking down the beach and it says 50% off, I'm sure you've seen those. Well, I haven't. And that is because these pictures, these ads are usually unlabeled. So there's no alternate text to describe the ad. And there's no text to describe a scene and to tell me about this. And so my screen reader would just say graphic, graphic, graphic. It wouldn't read me the text and I wouldn't know about this offer. And then I wouldn't be able to buy those beautiful bikinis. You know, it's really funny how sometimes merchants don't seem to be so interested in my money. But once you go on a website that is accessible and really works with a screen reader, that makes a great difference.
So yes, that was Sissy. Let's embark on the journey of helping Sissy buy those beautiful bikinis leveraging AI. Today, our focus is going to be on two things: accessibility and B, using AI tools like GitHub Copilot. So here we go, building accessible UI using GitHub Copilot. But the first question is, what is GitHub Copilot? I'm sure you guys have already seen so many talks today for the AI word. And I really don't need to tell you what GitHub Copilot is, but let's have a brief overview. If you don't know already, GitHub Copilot is an AI tool that helps us to write better code. AI tools like GitHub Copilot, Cursor, ChatGPT, they are popping up every now and then, have the potential to significantly enhance the accessibility of the code product given proper guidance and coaching. However, it is absolutely crucial to be mindful of certain considerations while using these tools, and this is what we are going to see today. So let me just briefly describe the use case. We all have built custom components, but now this is where the real thing starts. So I was just describing this use case, as you can see on your screen, that we are supposed to build a row of thumbnails. These thumbnails can be selected, they can be deselected, they can be checked, unchecked, etc. So I started with something that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, that is a code which is not accessible at all, because I wanted to check how and in what manner GitHub Copilot behaves. And I simply asked it to suggest improvement for accessibility. The first suggestion that it gave me was to replace a div with a button element. And it also outlined very beautifully that a button is inherently focusable, it provides built-in keyboard interaction and ARIA roles. So, okay, don't use a div, use a button. Sounds good. Let's check, when we use a button instead of a div, what do these row of thumbnails announce for a screen
Thumbnail,
reader?
button, main. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space, Thumbnail, button. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control, Option, Thumbnail, button. You are currently on a button. To click the thumbnail, button. You are currently on a button. To click this button, thumbnail, button. You are currently on a button. To click this.
Okay, so if you heard it, and I am hoping that you guys were able to hear it without any glitches, all we were hearing was a button, a button, 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 bunch of buttons. It just says, go figure it out on your own, and no more any extra data around it. So let's talk and complain about this to GitHub Copilot, that switching alone to button won't really help. So this is what I do. I am here telling GitHub Copilot that when I turn on my screen reader, all I hear is button. It did not tell me that it is of type checkbox or whether it can be selected or associated any label or value with it. And the suggestion that it gave me was to use appropriate ARIA attributes and associate a label with it. It suggested me to use role is equal to checkbox. It also suggested me to use ARIA checked with selection true or false. It also told me to use ARIA labeled by and a tab index. A bunch of ARIA attributes and roles attached to a button. Let's try this out.
Button, link, skip to sidebar. Balloon, unchecked, checkbox, main. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space. Sunglasses, unchecked, checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space. Cat, unchecked, checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space. Dog, unchecked, checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Picture, unchecked, checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space.
Okay, so this looks good. It is announcing the labels associated with the different thumbnails. It is also telling me whether it's checked as in selected or not. And this gives us our first learning. that with slight changes to the prompt, we can make significant results to the output. How we started with an ambiguous prompt saying, make this component accessible, versus when we specifically told GitHub Copilot or my AI agent that I want labels to be announced, I want it to tell me whether it's in a selected state or not, and it clearly gave me a better result. So ambiguous prompts leads to unpredictable results. While learning about accessibility and GitHub Copilot, I found this really cool blog by Microsoft folks, as you can see on your screen. It tells us how GitHub Copilot and how to use it for accessibility. On your screens right now, you see a snapshot of that blog and the prompt that GitHub engineers have recommended to use for GitHub Copilot when it comes to accessibility. It talks about the different WCAG levels, A, AA. It also gives us the resources like usew3.org. And it also tells me that it's sufficient to follow that 2.1 guidelines and use these things in your accessibility prompt. So I was like, why not? Let's just try this out. And over here in my GitHub Copilot window, I just copy pasted that particular prompt and made sure what we are doing right now. And as a result, this time GitHub Copilot came with another suggestion. It told me to use an input element with type checkbox instead of a button with so many different ARIA roles snapped on top of it. This looks definitely great, and semantic HTML is, of course, the way to go. Let's
Link.
just
Entering components thumbnail button. Multi-select frame. Thumbnail balloon. Uncheck. Checkbox. Main. You are currently on a checkbox. To select thumbnail sunglasses. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space. Check. Thumbnail sunglasses. Checkbox. Uncheck. Thumbnail sunglasses. Checkbox. Thumbnail cat. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Control, Option, Down, Control, Off. Control, Option, Down, Control, Off. Thumbnail dog. Uncheck. Checkbox. Check. Thumbnail dog. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To the thumbnail picture. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently...
Great. We have a good accessible code. It is announcing the labels. It is doing the keyboard navigation all right. It is announcing the right states. And this brings us to our second learning of today. We need to make sure that we are using reliable sources for our answers. After I told GitHub Copilot to adhere to the 2.2 standards, the w3.org values, it came up with a different answer. It came up with using semantic HTML. So it's really important that we are providing good and reliable sources as prompts to our AI agent. Let's go ahead and see another demo.
As you can see that this reusable component also takes it an attribute disabled. So I decided why not to try it out with one of the components, and let's see how screen reader reads it. So I ended up adding a disable true attribute to one of the thumbnails in the list, and let's just run our storybook and see what the screen reader says.
Voiceover on link. Change hide clear. Zoom enable change this go link. Copy the link. Skip thumbnail balloon. Uncheck. Checkbox. Main. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space. Thumbnail sunglasses. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. Thumbnail cat. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, thumbnail picture. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space.
In case you guys noticed, the screen reader skipped the fourth thumbnail from the list, which was the disabled thumbnail. It is taken out of the ARIA tree. But for a visually impaired person, it would seem that there were only 4 thumbnails and not 5 and which is not the reality. So it is really important to tell the tool that it might be wrong or missing out on something. We need to tell it about the edge case scenarios and that there can be errors in the solution that you have provided. That way, we are telling it of making it aware of the potential pitfalls or missing details that the AI should account for. Now, let's complain GitHub Copilot about this. As you can see that I am now prompting GitHub Copilot that when I ran the above code that you gave me in your previous recommendation, and I turned on my screen reader with disabled attribute set to true. The disabled attribute in the list was not announced. I simply, in my normal English, I just told GitHub Copilot about it. And this time it told me to use a ARIA disabled attribute instead of a disabled attribute. And it also clearly explains me why we need to add this specific ARIA role and property in order for the screen reader to announce it. So here am I just making that particular change as per GitHub Copilot's recommendation. And let's now try this out.
Voiceover on QuickTime Player. Chrome. Thumbnail balloon. Check. Checkbox. Uncheck. Thumbnail balloon. Check. Thumbnail sunglasses. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect the thumbnail cat. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. Check. Thumbnail cat. Checkbox. Uncheck. Thumbnail cat. Checkbox. Thumbnail dog. Dimmed. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. This item is dimmed. Thumbnail picture. Uncheck. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space, Check. Thumbnail picture, checkbox. Action button activated, button. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space.
Awesome. So if you saw through this demo how screen reader behaves this time after adding the ARIA disabled attribute to our disabled thumbnail, it announced it as a dimmed thumbnail, meaning to say that this particular thumbnail is disabled. Now, for a visually impaired user who is listening to a screen reader, he or she knows that there are 5 thumbnails, out of which one is dimmed, meaning to say that it's disabled. So this brings us to our fourth learning of a good prompt today, that iterate and refine. We need to adjust and test our prompts based on the output, refining them for better accuracy and relevance. So after so many manual inputs and manual testing, the list is finally accessible. We have the keyboard interaction working. We also have the images that are described beautifully by the screen reader. And we also have the focus on the elements. Okay, so GitHub Copilot made a lot of errors today. And this is not hugely surprising. We are seeing a potential danger that the stuff produced by AI tools may be inaccessible by default, and worse, if somebody who has good intentions of building an accessible UI but limited knowledge and wants to make a website accessible may be convinced by the false confidence that these tools are showing, and he might be thinking that together we are doing an amazing job. So we face a threat that the accessibility that is not a great already on the web, we are even making it worse. But there is, of course, a remediation around it. The problem is lack of training data. We need better training data. It is possible that the data may not represent the diversity of all individuals. Today, I may be one of the few developers who is working on accessibility, and models learn. Every drop in the quotient counts. In due course of time, and with the rapid pace that AI tools are working right now, we will be seeing good accessibility solutions from Copilot as well as other AI tools. But Does it mean that we should not be using AI tools for accessibility today? No, we should be using, and we need to train our models accordingly. Um, and there are ways to improve this thing. The first is crafting effective prompts. We already saw a definition of how a good prompt should look like today. Instead of giving it four different prompts, step by step, we could have articulated a beautiful prompt in the first go, and we could have covered edge case scenarios. We would have given it the right resources so that instead of following that fourth step, we could have gotten the result in step one. We need strong testing plans. We have various different tools, evaluation tools, for example, Xscore. We have Playwright to test out custom attributes, custom keyboard navigation, etc. But let's not forget about manual testing. In reality, accessibility is about people, and we cannot automate people like we automate code. So we really need manual testing. Start with yourself. Try navigating the website with only keyboards. I think the best way to watch is and to make sure that your website is truly accessible is to watch videos on the internet on YouTube and see how people with disabilities interact with the net and what is the that is the best way web developers can make things accessible. Yes, we need to have humans in the loop. ChatGPT cannot feel or understand what it is to be blind or disabled. It cannot understand the empathy to get it right. But we humans, we care about people. Treat GitHub Copilot as a junior developer. As a senior developer, it is your responsibility to check whether the suggestions provided are aligning with your project standards and ethics. I just want to leave you with one thought today. Accessibility isn't more work, the work was incomplete. Thanks, everyone. This is me signing off. In case you want to learn more about accessibility or any other cool stuff, please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or ping me on LinkedIn. Thanks, Frontend team, for a huge event, and hope you enjoy the rest of the talks. Thank you.
Hey, it was lovely hearing from you and learning from you. You also had you earlier on the panel discussion, so I was looking forward in your talk. Thank you very much. So we have a few questions for you, and let's get started. Navya, what's one accessibility myth you debunked during this project?
That's a great question. And I always tell everyone that when we are talking about accessibility, of course, the first rule of thumb is following semantic HTML. And then we talk about ARIA roles. And many times we just patch a lot of ARIA attributes without even thinking whether they are doing the job for us or not. So many times when I'm reviewing code, I'm seeing, oh my God, there are 10 ARIA attributes that are added to the code. And we think that it will make the website accessible, but that's not the truth. As we saw in our demo also today, that when I was talking to GitHub Copilot, it patched 4 ARIA attributes, which was not really required. So making sure that you are using the right semantic HTML and not just by slapping those ARIA attributes will do the job for you. So
That's a nice answer. We also have another question for developers new to using AI tools like Copilot. What's one tip you would give them to avoid common accessibility pitfalls in AI generated code?
that's again a very beautiful question. And I would say don't follow the recommendations blindly. With every code that is generated by AI tools or GitHub Copilot for that matter, make sure that we are testing it out. Of course, you would be already having end-to-end test cases or integrated test cases, but make sure that you are manually testing it. Make sure that you are using only keyboard and have your screen reader on to make sure that the website is actually accessible. So don't just follow what GitHub Copilot is telling you blindly. We need to test it out at the same time.
And we have another question. I think you pretty much just covered it with your answer. But another person is asking, what are the biggest gaps between Copilot suggestions and real accessibility needs?
I think that summarizes my entire talk for today. But yes, just to double click on that one, I would say we are at a place in the AI world where it is booming, and we just need to make sure that accessibility is also taken account when we are building websites. And otherwise, if we do not jump into AI and talk about and teach it how to build accessible websites, we might fall off the race. So we really need to make sure that we are using the AI tools correctly for accessibility, however bad result it's giving, but it will get there. So yeah.
And how do you train AI tools to better understand accessibility requirements?
That's again a very good question. I would say the more we test, the more scenarios we bring in front of AI tools. For example, my talk covered a disabled attribute scenario where, though we followed the GitHub prompt, the disabled thumbnail was not announced by by the screen reader. So the more training data we give, the more edge case scenarios we tell GitHub Copilot, the more complaints we raise to GitHub Copilot. That's where we will be able to train our AI tools better for accessibility.
That was a great answer. And we have a few more questions for you. What testing workflows do you use to validate AI generated accessible components?
I briefly covered this in my talk, and we have another talk, I think, right after my session, where we are talking about how we can leverage Playwright and
Yeah.
use it for end-to-end testing. And I'm sure we might be also talking about accessibility over there. But for example, one thing that we are kind of following at our organization right now is um, baking in accessibility test cases for end-to-end test cases. So for example, just imagine that you are writing end-to-end test cases for this row of thumbnail example that we just took into account, right? So what I would want to do is, as soon as I'm writing an end-to-end test case, it's the cursor or GitHub Copilot. It suggests me a utility. Oh, wait, you didn't check for accessibility. So make sure that you have a cursor rule or GitHub Copilot in place where it talks about a accessibility utility or a wrapper, and it automatically sees as soon as you are traversing from one button to another, is keyboard navigation working there,
Mhm.
focus element working there, and just have a accessible utility on top of it. So that way you can beautifully integrate end-to-end test cases with accessibility without any extra effort.
Perfect. We have one more. What's one key lesson you learned about balancing AI assistance with your role as a developer to ensure true accessibility in your components?
Nice. I think we were talking about this in our panel discussion as well earlier today, that
Mhm.
today what AI tools are giving us, the boilerplate code or the scaffolding the code for us, they are there. 70%, if I have to build a new website, I won't be building it from scratch myself. I will be the orchestrator and I will be telling AI to write that code for me. Where my role comes as a developer now in this age, I would say, in this era, I would say, is to cross check, is to make sure that the code written by AI agent is ethical. Is it accessible? Is enough? Is it responsive? Is it design compliant? Is it consistent with my designs? So that's where the balance lies, because the groundwork or the boilerplate code has already been taken care by my AI agent, given, of course, that my code base was already strong enough and it was giving me a nice solution on its own. So my job is really reduced over there so that I can focus on these areas more now.
Perfect, really well put. And I have one last question for you. Again, I think we covered this topic a little bit, but I don't know if you have to add anything else. How do you balance development speed with accessibility thoroughness when using AI?
Um, Okay, to be honest, it becomes a bit frustrating when I am dealing with accessibility using AI. At the
Mm-hmm.
moment, I would say. But I was just seeing another conference. We had it in the Accessibility Club for Bay Area, where a particular engineer had developed a plugin, only a plugin, a Copilot plugin, only for accessibility. So I think it's a matter of time. People are coming with solutions. This space is huge, it's booming, and web accessibility is one of the major scenarios that is being taken care of right now. So in coming times, I think we will be seeing me going from being frustrated to saying, oh my god, this is wonderful. So
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much for all of the answers. I hope our audience got the answers that they were looking for or they learned something new. For sure, I know about myself that I learned a lot of stuff, not only from your talk, but from the other talks as well. Thank you very much for being with us.
thank you so much. Thank you. Bye bye.